Hey, what's up, everybody? It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting here at my kitchen table making a cover of a Kanye West tune, as I'm sure all of you were doing at 6 o'clock this morning as well. So, let's check it out. What we're going to do is take a piece of this Kanye West tune, Stronger, and we're going to recreate it entirely. The beat, the bass line, the synth, a vocal, and that sample from Daft Punk that he uses. All right, let's check it out. First of all, I'm going to be recording on this little device here called Wiretap. It's pretty cool. It allows you to record the output of any program. I'm doing it so I can record the output of Pro Tools and put it into this video tutorial I'm making so you guys can hear it at good quality. Okay, so I'm recording here. Let's give a listen to just the original Kanye sample. This is a 4-bar sample. I cut it out of the original song. Here we go. I need you right now. Okay, so there you go. 4-bar phrase. So that's what we're going to imitate entirely. All right? And just to let you know, we're going to jump to the very end, and I'm going to let you listen to what you're going to finally make. Okay? So we can see we have a bunch of tracks here. First of all, we have a kick track. We have a snare track. We have a bass track. We have a synth track. We have Daft Punk. And then we have my imitation of Kanye. So there you go. That's my best attempt at imitating Kanye with I need you right now. Okay, anyway, so that's what we're going to make, all right? So let's do it. I'm actually going to quit out of this session, and we're going to start from scratch here. Okay, so here we go. We're going to open up a Pro Tools session, and we're going to call it first name, last name, dot, harder. And it thinks and goes through its whole little thing here. All right, so Stronger. Let's open up a blank session here. And we are going to call this session first name, last name, dot, Stronger. And then where are we going to save it? Well, we're going to save it on the E drive. I don't have my E drive connected here, but you should be opening this little triangle, selecting the E drive, and then your home folder, the folder that has your name on it. Then, and only then, hit save. Okay. Here we go. So I've got this blank session. The first thing that I'm going to do is drag in my Kanye West Stronger song. So I'm going to drop it into the light gray portion of the edit window, and it makes a track for me. I'm just going to pull this to beginning. I'm going to pull the track down so I have a good view of the waveform. And it's thinking here, sort of analyzing. I'm having to use my other laptop that's a little slower. It's a 2 gigahertz as opposed to 3 gigahertz, so it's a little slower at figuring this stuff out. All right, zoom in. All right, now the section that we're listening to starts right in here, and I'll give you a little bit of the advance so you can hear it in context, okay? So here's what's happening.
I've been waiting all night now. That's how long I've been on ya.
Okay, let's get rid of this click track here, first of all. I'm going to control click and delete that click track. Okay, so that's where we want to cut this thing at the very beginning.
I've been waiting all night now. That's how long I've been on ya.
Right there. Oh, it's my alarm. This is the alarm that normally is telling me that it's time to wake up, but I've actually already been up for about 3 hours. It's been a fun weekend. All right, so anyway, here we are.
I've been waiting all night now. That's how long I've been on ya.
Boom. That's where we're starting.
Let's get lost.
So that's the section that I'm looking for, is from here to right about here. Let's listen to the whole thing, roughly, okay? Second bar, third bar, fourth bar.
Let's get lost.
Okay? So I'm going to pull back a little bit, tab to transient, hit hit Command E to separate. Then I'm going to come over to where I know this section ends, which is right here. Hit tab to transient again, and there's my piece. Let's listen to it loop. Here it comes.
Let's get
Sounds great. Okay, now really I can just get rid of this other stuff. We're not going to worry about it for right now. Okay, I'm going to bring this over to the beginning of the session. Let's just get rid of the rest of the song, so I don't even have to worry about it. Okay, this is all I'm going to do. Okay, so first thing I want to do, of course, step one, lock this to the grid. I know a lot of us have been avoiding that. So how do we lock something to the grid? Well, we tell Pro Tools, hey, make this polyphonic, and then tell it this is 4 bars long. But before we do that, we want to adjust our grid so that the grid is pretty close to the tempo of the song. Otherwise, when we make it polyphonic and tell Pro Tools this is 4 bars long, it's going to make it really fast. Okay? Now, just to make sure that we understand how that's working, I'm going to do it the wrong way first. I'm going to make it polyphonic without adjusting the tempo. Okay, I made it polyphonic. It's thinking for a second, analyzes the waveform. There it is. It comes back. Now I'm going to tell Pro Tools, hey, Pro Tools, this is 4 bars. So I'm going to go to Elastic Properties, enter a 4 here, hit return. See how the piece shrunk? Now listen to the tempo of it. Way too fast, right? Okay, so why did that happen? Because when I tell Pro Tools, hey, make this 4 bars long, it makes it 4 bars long in its grid. So if the grid is too scrunched, it's going to make the song too fast. If the grid is too stretched out, it's going to make the song too slow. So before I do this, I'm going to go back here and get rid of my polyphonic plugin. It says, what do you want to do? Do you want to commit to it the way it is or go back, revert? I want to revert. So I'm going to hit revert. I go back to the way it was. And here's what I'm going to do. I know that this is supposed to be 4 bars long. So if I take a look up here, right now, 4 bars of my grid is significantly shorter than the 4 bars of this song, which means that the grid is too compressed. It's too scrunched together. So I have to slow down the tempo and spread out the grid until the 4 bars of the grid line up pretty much with the 4 bars of this piece. I want it close, okay? All right, so I'm going to cut to the chase here. It turns out that I get just exactly there if I select 104 beats per minute. Okay? And now if I zoom in, I can see, yeah, that 5, which is the end of the 4th bar, is right at the end of the piece. Okay. So now I can make this thing polyphonic. And now I can select it, do Elastic Properties, and make it 4 bars. Wow, well, it was already 4 bars, but there we go. Okay. That takes care of locking to the grid. That was step 1. Step 2 is to start to make the instrument tracks for the various parts of this song, like the drums, the bass, the synthesizer, and so forth. Okay? We're going to start with the drums. Now, in order to do this, we're going to need only 2 tracks for the drums, one for the snare drum and one for the kick drum, because if we listen to this, that's the only thing that's there. There's no hi-hat, there's no cymbals, there's no toms, there's only kick and snare. That's it, that's all that's there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make 2 stereo instrument tracks. And I'm going to call one snare. I'm double-clicking on the name here to do this. Double-click on the name again and call it kick. Okay, let's start with the snare. Let's make it a little bigger so we can see here. All right. Now remember that you have to have your inserts shown here in order to put an instrument on. If you don't have your inserts shown, displayed next to the track, you have to click here by the track edit view window selector, edit window view selector. There we go. So I'm going to click on that and make sure that inserts is checked. Okay, then they'll show up there. All right, so now I want to put an instrument on here, and I'm going to put on, as we are most of the time, an expand 2. So multi-channel plug-in instrument expand 2. All right, so this pops up. Now what I want to put on here is just a snare drum. I'm doing things a little differently than we have in the past, where we've done all the drums on one track. I'm going to have one track for the snare and one track for the kick. I'm going to explain why later, but it's going to help us get this thing to sound just like Kanye's track. Close. All right, so we're doing the snare, so I'm going to click here. I'm going to come down to drums, and I'm going to choose kick selector X2, snare selector X2, where are you? Snare menu X2, thank you, right here, snare menu X2. All right, once I've got that, I'm going to close my expand, and I'm going to open my MIDI editor window, the place where we enter all our notes, all right? And how do I do that? Control equals, and there it is. Okay, now if I play here, I can hear that what I've got is just a bunch of snares. Every note is a different kind of snare. Okay? That one right there is the one that I want to use. Just from listening to the song, I can tell that note, which is actually C4, that snare gives me the sound that's going to be the closest to what he's doing. Okay? All right, so now the question is, where do I put it? All right, now we might have a suspicion here. We've talked about this before. Almost all hip-hop, almost all rock is based on a backbeat. And in a backbeat, the snare is on the 2 and the 4. Let's listen and see if that's the case here.
Let's get
It is. Okay, let's just count to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That kick is exactly on the 2 and the 4. So this is easy. We're just going to put a kick. Remember, we're here on the row corresponding to C. I'm going to go over to the second beat. If I look up here at the top, I can see my bars and beats markers are telling me where to put this snare. And this is why I need to have stuff locked to the grid. If I don't have it locked to the grid, I can't use the grid to do this. So I'm going to scroll down to the row corresponding to C4 and just double click right there so that I get one on the second beat. Then I'm going to put one on the fourth beat. And I got to do this for all 4 measures of this tune. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And I'm going to save myself a little time. I'm going to select all of the snares. I'm going to hold down Option and drag this thing to make another copy. And there I go. There's my snare. Okay, let's listen to it. Okay, so that's in time. It doesn't sound exactly like his snare yet, but we're going to fix that kind of stuff later. Okay? All right, so zooming back out here and going back to my original window, that took care of my snare. That was easy. Let's take care of the kick. All right, so I need to put another expand onto this track, and to do that, I'm going to do another trick. I'm going to Option drag, which we know makes copies of things. So Option drag and expand down onto that kick track, and I get another copy of it. And I'm going to switch it this time to drums. Come on, there we go. And now we're looking for the kick menu. And that is right there, kick menu X2. Okay? All right. So let's go back to our MIDI editor window. And, oops, let's Control equals, there we go. And remember, in order to put the notes onto my new track, the kick, instead of the snare, I have to select this little dot, this gray dot next to the kick, and deselect the one next to the snare. My snare notes disappear. Now the notes that I enter are going to go on the kick. Okay, so let's listen for a second. So it starts with boom, boom, bop, boom, boom. In other words, kick, kick, snare, kick, kick. Doom, do, bop, do, do. Okay, this is my best lame imitation at trying to imitate kicks and snares. Do, do, bop, do, do. You know, it sounds ridiculous, but you got to do something. Okay, so So I'm trying to hit boom, boom, bop, boom, boom. Well, I know the kick is on, I know the snare is on the 2. So I can hear also that the first kick is right on the 1. So let's first of all find the kick that we're going to use. And we got a bunch of different ones here. And let's see, what was the one that I was using? I think it was that one. And you could choose to use a different one if you want, if you think that you know one that sounds a little bit more like the beat than this one. But this is the one that I thought sounded the closest. So I'm going to put a double hit right there. I'm going to do one more thing before I do this. Remember these velocity sliders, which represent how hard the drum is getting kicked? Well, I want it to be hit hard. And so that I don't have to keep doing this, lifting that velocity up, I'm going to come up here to where this little 80 is, and I'm going to select 127. Now what that does, 127 turns out to be the maximum velocity. So if I do that, now every note that I enter is going to have the maximum velocity, meaning it's going to be hit as hard as possible by our virtual drummer. All right, so this is a bit of an art form. We have to use our ears really just to figure out where these kicks are going to go. But since I hear that the next kick is right before the first snare, boom, boom, bop, I know it's going to be right there because I know that the next beat, where the 2 is, the second beat, is my first kick. So, it's my first snare, excuse me. So, the next 2 hits, just listening, are going to be right here. And now we just have to keep going with this process of listening and trying to guess where they are, okay? Now I'm just going to go ahead and enter where I can kind of hear the kicks are. What you can really do is just try it on your own. Try and get the kicks as close as you can. After about 5 minutes, if you feel like you're not quite there, then come back to the video and see what I've actually got, okay? But it's worthwhile to try and use your ear to get those kicks. Okay, here we go. I've got another hit there. Whoops, CV low. Okay, we don't want that to happen too often. It repeats the same thing. Close to it at least. And that's going to look like that. And then there's a double hit there. And then one right there, if I'm not mistaken. And then it repeats this again. Boom, so it's right there. And I'm going kind of fast through this because I'm assuming that you're going to be trying on your own and then just coming back here to check. Okay? And all I'm really doing is just listening for where that kick is and kind of counting along, going 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and hearing where that thing is hitting and putting it into the appropriate 16th note. Incidentally, in order to do this, we should A, be in grid mode, B, have a grid over here of 16th notes. If we don't, it's not going to work. Okay. Okay, spacing out. So let's see, where were we? And then there's just 2 more kicks right at the end before it stops at that silence. One's right there, one's right there. Okay, and that should do it. And if we go back, let's listen to these 2 tracks by themselves now, soloed. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, that last snare is not there. Let's get rid of that. Now let's listen to it with Kanye.
Let's get
Okay, now you You might also be thinking, all right, it sounds like we got the right notes here, but this just sounds a little kind of lackluster, a little kind of blah compared to the beat that he's got. All right, there's things that we can definitely do, but we're going to hold off on that because that's kind of like later in the session. We're going to get there, and I'm going to show you some tricks to make these drums really kind of like pop and explode and get some good thump and all that kind of stuff, all right? But basically that's it for the drum part, okay? So now we're going to move on from there to our synthesizer part. So let's do that. We're going to make one more track here, a stereo instrument track. And what I'm going to ask you to do in preparation for this, and we're going to cut this part of the video and then we'll go on to the next one, is to go online and find the chords for Stronger. Okay? They're out there. Now, they may or may not all be correct, as you've probably learned the hard way. Sometimes you go out and get chords on the internet and someone has just put them up there and they're just wrong. Okay? Hopefully they're going to be right. At least we have a place to start. Then I'm going to definitely show you what the actual chords are and how to get it. Okay? Cool. So check that out, find those chords, and then you can go on to part 2 of the video. Ciao.